Let's look at the running back position, right? Kobe Dillon, who has been a part of this program for a long time. He was a high school quarterback, led his team to a high school state championship here in Louisiana. He went off to junior college. He came to Southern, and once he got to Southern, they saw his athletic ability and transitioned him from a quarterback to a running back. And that's ultimately what his position was during his time at Southern. And he had bright spots. At one game a few years back, he broke the SWAC single-game rushing record against UAPB before it was broken again the next week, I believe, or the next year by an Alcorn running back. But nonetheless, he had upside. But your thoughts looking at Kobe Dillon entering the transfer portal, 1 year left. He's dealt with some injuries as well throughout his career. Never truly had that breakout year, but he had spots where, you saw the potential and the athletic ability of him. But your thoughts looking at Kobe Dillon and evaluating with him now in the transfer portal?
I think his upside's there, right? I mean, you get a guy who has the talent to be an every down back if he continues to take steps forward. I mean, it's a guy who has contributed at a high level in the SWAC, has had a few performances that have kind of turned your head and been like, okay, the upside's there. And the kid averaged almost 5 yards per carry this year, had 800 on the ground this year. So the potential's there. I want to say right now, I don't know if he's a kid that doesn't post his offers. The only offer that I've seen him post is Alcorn, which would be interesting, right? Because Alcorn had a lack of depth at running back this year, and we all kind of talked that Alcorn needed to solve that running back issue. So I don't know if he's a guy that's going to go P4 Perry. I can see maybe lower in G5 potentially, but I really do think he's going to stick somewhere in the FCS level, and I would not be surprised if he ended up back in the SWAC. And, I mean, you look at Alcorn, I think I believe Eagle's going from Alabama A&M. That's a potential landing spot. Grambling needs some weapons at running back as well. So I think there's a few different spots in the SWAC that he could land. And so I would imagine that he probably sticks at the FCS level if I had to put my money on it.
And, Chuck was talking about the transfer portal hitting Grambling. Co-defensive player of the year, Grambling hitting the transfer portal. How big is that for them to lose that guy to the portal?
Massive. Perry, I mean, I think, I don't know. I was told by a player at the Celebration Bowl that I talked to that they thought he should have been SWAC Defensive Player of the Year by himself. They said he was the most athletic, the most versatile athlete defensively that they saw all year. So the kid is legit, man. And I think when you turn on his film, his ability to generate negative plays, his ability to play sideline to sideline, his ability to drop into coverage and make an impact. Like Andrew Jones is just a freak athlete, especially if, we know how measurables are on across FCS football in terms of people lying, but if he's legit 6'2", 220, and I haven't seen this kid play in person, so I can't speak to that. If he has those measurables, man, that kid's going to be an NFL player one day, and I'm really hoping he goes to Ole Miss and is able to have a massive impact. But Perry, you're looking at a guy who put up 122 tackles, 20 and a half for loss, 3 sacks on a Grambling defense where he didn't have a lot of help around him. So, man, the kid is just a freak athlete, man, and I'm hoping he gets a fair shot to earn some playing time in the SEC this year.
And aside from you talking UAPB with Giovanni Gibson, who was a wide receiver, 1,000-yard receiver, he just committed to Oklahoma, so he'll be playing for the Sooners. You look at the quarterback who passed to him, who had over 2,500 yards passing at UAPB with a bad offensive line and no run game with B.J. Curry. Now you look at Mekhi Hagan, who has to be the top quarterback in the transfer portal from around the SWAC. Anything you've heard with Mekhi Hagan and exactly what it's looking like for him currently?
So I want to say he's posted a few offers, but I don't know if I don't think his potential is as high as Giovanni Gibson. I want to say I know he's posted an offer to South Carolina State. He has an offer from Howard. So I think he's going to stick in the FCS, Perry, potentially, like I said, lower G5 that really, really needs a quarterback. But I think his potential's there, man. I mean, like you said, he did his thing with no offensive line, with one true target at wide receiver in Giovanni Gibson. And so I think Mekhi Hagan is a guy who could go somewhere and instantly upgrade a quarterback room whether that's as a starter or even as a backup, depending on which level he sticks at. But I think Giovanni Gibson landed in the perfect spot then with Oklahoma, by the way. I think that offense, they bring in Washington State's offensive coordinator that just signed John Mateer, the Washington State quarterback from this past year. And Perry, I mean, this kid is an absolute freak at quarterback, man. I mean, he threw for 3,100 yards, 29 touchdowns, had 15 rushing and almost 1,000 rushing on the ground as well. So I think that entire offense is revamped. And also with Oklahoma, Perry, they were missing their top 5 wide receivers due to injury, and a lot of those guys transferred out this past year. So Giovanni Gibson joins that room. They added a transfer from Southern Illinois as well. And so you're looking at that wide receiver room having 2 of the best FCS guys leading that room next year with an extremely talented quarterback and a revamped offense.
Mekhi Hagan also with an offer from Southern University. You know what's interesting, Blue, before we get ready to go to break? The offensive weapons that have come and gone out of UAPB. You're looking at Mekhi Hagan, Giovanni Gibson. How about Kavion Britton, who left in FCS All-American and went to Tarleton State? UAPB has had some ballers on the offensive side, but they are the product of what we talked about earlier in the show. A kid comes in and balls out, and you can't keep him in your program, Blue.
Yeah. So, I mean, Kavion Britton ran for 1,900 yards this year and 18 touchdowns. The past 2 years, he's run for over 3,000 yards and almost 40 touchdowns at Tarleton State. And let's not forget, they, on top of that, too, had, Mark Evans, who went to the league. They also had the defensive back who transferred, I want to say, to like K-State or something like that, and I'm blanking on his name right now. And so, I mean, they've had so much individual
They had a
talent.
linebacker go to Alabama State.
Rico Dozier.
Yeah.
And then let's not forget, Jackson's starting linebacker 2 years ago came from UAPB. Isaac Peppers.
Yeah, he did. They've had the talent.
They
just had a hard time keeping the talent, man.
Yeah, I mean, think about what they could have been if they could have kept all this talent and had one of those. I mean, Perry, we'd be talking about them as a SWAC championship favorite.
Yeah. That's crazy. But that's the give and take of the transfer portal. That's when a guy goes somewhere, gets an opportunity at a program, and figures he's bigger than the program, and he transfers out and goes somewhere else. And that's what has hurt UAPB year in and year out, because no doubt about it, they have had the talent up in Pine Bluff. They just can't seem to keep the talent.